My name is Peter Morgan, and I'm 71 years old. I'm writing this from a VA hospital bed in Missoula, Montana, where the doctors think I'm just another old veteran dying from emphysema. They do not know that I'm finally ready to tell the truth about what happened in 1997. I spent 7 weeks in the Bitterroot Mountains tracking a wounded Bigfoot. The official story was that I was guiding a hunting expedition that went longer than expected. My son Jake believed that version for 28 years. But last week, Jake found my old tracking journals while helping me sort through my belongings. He read enough to know I've been lying to him about where I really was and what I really saw. He deserves the truth about the Bigfoot I found, and maybe you do too. I was a hunting guide for 40 years. I tracked deer, elk, bear, mountain lion. I learned tracking from my grandfather when I was 8, refined it in special forces during Vietnam. I could follow anything through any terrain. That was my reputation, my livelihood, my identity. I was also a terrible father. I chose the wilderness over my family every single time. My marriage to Linda collapsed when Jake was 14 because I was never home, never present, never there when it mattered. Jake got me on weekends sometimes, and I used those weekends to take him hunting when what he really wanted was a father who showed up to his basketball games. By 1997, I was 43 and living alone in a cabin outside Missoula. Jake was 16 and wanted nothing to do with me. Linda had remarried a man who actually came home at night. I told myself I was fine with the solitude, that the mountains were enough. They were not enough. In October of 1997, I got a call from a wealthy client. He had wounded a Bigfoot during an illegal night hunt and needed it found and disposed of quietly. He offered me $5,000, cash. I owed 3 months of child support and had bills stacking up. I took the job without asking questions about the Bigfoot. That decision changed everything. I spent 7 weeks in those mountains learning things about Bigfoot that science does not know, cannot know, because I am about to take those secrets to my grave. But first, I need to tell my son why I came back from that Bigfoot expedition different. Why I suddenly quit guiding and took a job at a hardware store. Why I started showing up to his games and graduation and wedding. Why I became present after 16 years of absence. The answer is simple and impossible. A Bigfoot taught me how to be a father by showing me what protection and presence really mean. This is what happened in the Bitterroot Mountains. This is what I saw when I tracked that wounded Bigfoot into the trees. This is why some Bigfoot encounters change you forever. I was 43 in 1997, divorced and professionally respected in that hollow way people are when work is all they have left. My marriage to Linda had ended badly, not because of affairs or dramatic fights, but because I was never there. I chose every hunting trip over every family dinner. Jake took it hard. He was 14 when we separated, at that age where a father matters most. The custody arrangement gave Linda primary custody. I got every other weekend, which felt generous considering I was barely a parent even when we lived together. Linda remarried quickly, a high school teacher named Robert who coached basketball and showed up to things. Jake needed that stability, that presence. I told myself I was doing the right thing by stepping back, by letting him have the parent who actually parented. The truth was uglier and simpler. I chose my work because it was easier than choosing him. My specialty was tracking. I could follow anything through any conditions. Rain, snow, rock, water, did not matter. I read the forest the way other people read books. Every broken twig, every disturbed leaf, every scratch on bark told me a story. Hunters paid me good money to track their trophies. Search and rescue called me when hikers went missing. The Forest Service hired me to track problem bears. I was the best tracker in western Montana, and I knew it. I worked alone because I preferred it that way. No partners, no assistants, no one to witness how many days I could spend in the wilderness without thinking about the surface world, about the son who was growing up without me. The mountains did not judge me. The forest did not care that I missed Jake's basketball games or forgot to call on his birthday. Out there, with my pack and my rifle and my skills, everything made sense. The winter of 1996 into 97 was brutal. Heavy snow closed most of the mountain passes by December. I waited until October to take new clients, spending the quiet months doing odd jobs and avoiding Jake's angry phone calls. That October, I got the call that would lead me to Bigfoot. A man named Richard Calloway, wealthy businessman from Seattle, had shot something in the Bitterroot wilderness during what he admitted was an illegal night hunt. He needed it found quietly, needed proof it was dead, needed the whole thing to disappear. He offered me $5,000 cash. No questions, no paperwork, no trail. I owed $3,200 in back child support. My truck needed a new transmission. The cabin roof was leaking. I needed that money desperately. I took the job without asking what he had shot or why it needed to disappear. That was my first mistake. My second was assuming I could track anything, even a wounded Bigfoot that did not want to be found. I met Calloway at a truck stop outside Missoula on a cold October morning. He was nervous, sweating despite the chill, eyes moving constantly like he expected someone to recognize him. He handed me a map with an area circled in red, deep in the Bitterroot wilderness. He told me he had shot a Bigfoot. He said it walked. On two legs, stood at least 8 feet tall, and was covered in dark reddish hair. He said the Bigfoot screamed when the bullet hit, then disappeared into the forest. He needed confirmation the Bigfoot was dead, needed me to bury whatever remained. I asked him if he was certain it was Bigfoot. He said he did not know what else it could be and did not want to know. He just wanted it gone, wanted to forget the Bigfoot encounter ever happened. That should have been my warning to walk away. But I took his cash and his map and drove into the mountains to find the wounded Bigfoot. The trailhead was remote, accessible only by logging roads that had not seen maintenance in years. I parked my truck and hiked in with a week's worth of supplies. The area Calloway marked was 15 miles from the nearest trail, true wilderness that saw maybe a handful of people per year. I found his hunting blind on the second day. Expensive setup, camouflaged and elevated with spent rifle cartridges on the ground. 30-06 hunting rounds. Whatever Bigfoot he shot, he meant to kill it. The blood trail started 20 feet from the blind. That was my first real clue that I was tracking Bigfoot and not some known animal. The blood was darker than deer or elk, almost black in the dried state. The consistency was different too, thicker somehow. I followed it east into dense forest, where the canopy blocked most of the sunlight. The Bigfoot trail was easy at first, obvious drops every few feet, but the pattern was strange. Too far apart for a four-legged animal, too wide for a human stride. The wounded Bigfoot was walking upright and covering ground fast despite being shot. I have tracked wounded animals my entire life. They follow predictable patterns based on instinct and pain. They seek water or shelter, move downhill to conserve energy, leave obvious trails because survival matters more than stealth. This Bigfoot trail was different. The wounded Bigfoot was avoiding clearings, using water to obscure its path, backtracking to create false trails. This was not animal behavior. This Bigfoot was showing intelligence, strategy, deliberate evasion. By the third day, I was following Bigfoot sign more than blood. Broken branches at 8 feet high. Impressions in soft ground that looked like human footprints but were twice the size. Scraped bark where something massive had brushed against trees. I knew with certainty I was tracking Bigfoot, and I knew I should turn back. But I had spent my entire life believing Bigfoot was a myth. The tracker in me needed to know for certain, needed to see Bigfoot with my own eyes. So I kept following the Bigfoot trail deeper into the wilderness. On the morning of day 4, I found where the Bigfoot lived. The blood trail led upward into steep terrain covered in old growth forest. Douglas fir and cedar trees, some of them 500 years old, towering 200 feet above the forest floor. I was focused on the ground, reading. Bigfoot sign, when I nearly walked into a tree that had been deliberately modified. Branches had been broken and woven together 40 feet up, creating a platform large enough for a Bigfoot to rest on. I stopped and looked up, really looked, and my understanding of Bigfoot shifted completely. There were Bigfoot platforms everywhere, dozens of them spread through multiple trees, connected by branches that had been bent and shaped into pathways. This was not random. This was Bigfoot construction, Bigfoot architecture, intentional Bigfoot habitation. I had spent 40 years in the wilderness and never seen Bigfoot structures like this. Some platforms had woven bark containers hanging from branches. Others had food caches visible from below, dried meat and roots stored in elevated locations where Bigfoot could access them. The Bigfoot platforms were 40 to 60 feet up, high enough that nobody looking from the ground would notice them unless they knew to look. I had walked under Bigfoot structures like this hundreds of times in my life, never seeing them, because I was trained to track on the ground. Bigfoot did not live on the forest floor like everyone thought. Bigfoot lived in the canopy, in the trees, completely invisible to ground-based searchers. The sophistication of the Bigfoot village shocked me. These were not simple Bigfoot nests. There were waste management systems, runoff channels carved into bark, collection points for rainwater. There were tool marks on branches, cuts made by something sharp and used with precision. This was Bigfoot civilization. Hidden, arboreal Bigfoot civilization that science had missed because everyone was looking in the wrong place. Fresh blood marked one of the lower Bigfoot platforms. The wounded Bigfoot had returned home, had climbed 60 feet with a bullet wound. I could see dark stains on the bark, signs of heavy bleeding from the injured Bigfoot. That was when I felt it. The sensation of being watched by Bigfoot, intense and undeniable. I turned slowly, scanning the canopy, and caught movement. Shadows shifting between branches, massive Bigfoot shapes repositioning to observe me. There was more than one Bigfoot up there. I was standing beneath a Bigfoot village, and multiple Bigfoot were watching me. I had two choices. I could leave, report back to Callaway that the Bigfoot had escaped, collect my money, and forget what I had seen. Or I could stay, could try to make contact with Bigfoot, could attempt to help the wounded Bigfoot that might be dying 60 feet above my head. My military medic training was screaming at me. Gunshot wound on a Bigfoot, 4 days old, heavy bleeding, signs of infection. Without treatment, that Bigfoot would die within a week. I made my choice. I set up camp beneath the Bigfoot village and started unpacking my medical supplies. I spent that first afternoon organizing supplies and trying not to panic. Every survival instinct I had was screaming at me to leave, to get away. From the Bigfoot watching from above. But something stronger kept me rooted to that spot beneath the Bigfoot village. Maybe it was guilt. Callaway had shot that Bigfoot, and I had taken his money. That made me complicit in whatever happened to the wounded Bigfoot. If the Bigfoot died from that wound, I was partially responsible. I laid out my medical kit on a flat rock where the Bigfoot could clearly see it from above. Antibiotics, bandages, antiseptic, surgical thread, needles, everything I had that might help a wounded Bigfoot survive. Then I did something that felt insane. I started talking to the Bigfoot in the trees. "I am not here to hurt you," I called up into the canopy. "I am here to help. One of you is wounded. I have medicine. I'm a medic. I can help the injured Bigfoot." My voice sounded strange in the quiet forest, too loud, too human. But I kept talking to the Bigfoot, explaining what each medical item was, demonstrating on myself. I cleaned an old cut on my arm with antiseptic, showing the Bigfoot that it helped, that it did not cause harm. Nothing happened for hours. The Bigfoot stayed hidden in the platforms above. I could feel their eyes on me, could sense movement in the canopy, but no Bigfoot revealed itself. As dusk approached, I built a small fire and made dinner. Freeze-dried food, nothing special, but I left half of it on the rock beside my medical supplies, an offering to the Bigfoot, a gesture of good faith. That night, I lay in my sleeping bag and listened to the sounds of Bigfoot moving through the trees above me. Heavy footsteps on branches, low vocalizations that might have been Bigfoot communication. The wounded Bigfoot coughed several times, a wet, painful sound that confirmed infection. I called up into the darkness, speaking to the Bigfoot again. "The wounded one needs help. The infection will spread. In 3 days, maybe 4, the Bigfoot will die. I can prevent that. Please let me help." Silence fell over the Bigfoot village. Then I heard something descending, bark scraping as a massive Bigfoot form climbed down slowly. It stopped 30 feet up, still in shadows, but close enough that I could make out its shape. The Bigfoot was enormous, at least 8 feet tall, even hunched over, shoulders broader than any human, covered in dark reddish-brown hair. The moonlight caught its eyes briefly, and I saw intelligence there, not animal awareness, but thought, consideration. This was the wounded Bigfoot Calloway had shot. The Bigfoot that should hate all humans, but was curious enough to come closer, desperate enough to consider my offer of help. I stayed perfectly still, barely breathing, letting the Bigfoot study me. This moment would determine everything, whether the Bigfoot would trust me or disappear forever into the forest. The Bigfoot made a sound, low and questioning. I took it as permission to try. The wounded Bigfoot descended another 10 feet at dawn, moving carefully, favoring its left side. In better light, I could see the injury clearly. The bullet had shattered the Bigfoot's shoulder, entry wound still seeping despite being 4 days old. The skin around it was inflamed, infected, the kind of wound that would kill if left untreated. I stood slowly, keeping my movements calm and predictable. The Bigfoot watched me with those impossibly intelligent eyes, tracking every motion. I picked up my medical kit and took 3 steps toward the tree. The Bigfoot tensed, but did not retreat. I stopped, waiting, giving the Bigfoot time to adjust to my proximity. "I have to clean the wound," I said softly. "It will hurt, but the pain means the medicine is working. The Bigfoot needs to trust me for this to work." The Bigfoot made a sound, not quite a growl, not quite agreement. Then it descended further, coming down to a branch about 15 feet off the ground. It gripped the trunk with its right arm, holding itself steady, and turned its injured left shoulder toward me. Permission. The Bigfoot was granting permission for treatment. I used a fallen log to climb closer, moving slowly until I was at eye level with the Bigfoot's wound. Up close, the Bigfoot was even more massive than I thought, easily 800 pounds of muscle and bone, with hands large enough to crush my skull without effort. But those hands stayed still, clinging to the tree as I opened my medical kit. The wound was worse than it looked from a distance. The bullet had fragmented on impact, leaving shrapnel embedded in tissue. Infection had set deep, the flesh hot and swollen. I needed to clean it thoroughly, extract the fragments, pack it with antibiotics. I warned the Bigfoot before I started. This will hurt badly. The Bigfoot needs to stay still. If the Bigfoot moves, I might cause more damage. The Bigfoot made a sound that I interpreted as understanding. Then I began. I worked for 2 hours, cleaning the wound with antiseptic while the Bigfoot shuddered in pain but did not pull away. I extracted 3 bullet fragments with forceps, each one making the Bigfoot grunt but not fight. I packed the cavity with antibiotic cream, then stitched the worst of the torn tissue. The Bigfoot's pain tolerance was extraordinary. A human would have screamed, would have needed sedation. This Bigfoot took it in silence, trusting me not to cause unnecessary harm. When I finished, I wrapped the shoulder in clean bandages and stepped back. The Bigfoot examined my work with its right hand, touching the wrapping gently, then looked at me. In that moment, something passed between us. Recognition, maybe, or gratitude. The Bigfoot reached out with one massive hand and touched my face, fingers gentle despite their size. Then the Bigfoot climbed back up into the canopy, disappearing into the Bigfoot village above. But I knew this was not the end. This was the beginning of something impossible. The wounded Bigfoot returned to my camp at dusk. It descended to the same branch as before and waited while I examined the injury. The swelling had reduced slightly, the inflammation less angry. The antibiotics were working. I changed the bandages while the Bigfoot watched, its eyes following my hands with focused attention. I got the sense the Bigfoot was not just allowing treatment, but studying my technique, learning my methods. When I finished, the Bigfoot made a sound, a low rumble that seemed to indicate approval. Then it gestured upward toward the Bigfoot platforms and made a different sound. An invitation, maybe, or a question. The Bigfoot wanted me to climb up, to see the Bigfoot village from inside rather than below. My heart hammered in my chest. This was trust on a level I had not expected. The Bigfoot was offering access to its home, to the hidden world where Bigfoot lived. I nodded, and the Bigfoot began to climb. I followed, using branches and handholds, my old military training coming back. The Bigfoot moved slowly, accommodating my human limitations, waiting when I struggled. We reached the first platform 40 feet up, and my perspective shifted completely. From this height, the Bigfoot village was clearly visible. Platforms connected by bent branches, pathways through the canopy that a Bigfoot could navigate without ever touching the ground. The wounded Bigfoot I had been treating made a sound, and 3 more Bigfoot emerged from platforms nearby. One was larger than my Bigfoot, with darker fur, moving with protective caution. 2 others were smaller, younger, with curious eyes and less wariness. A Bigfoot family. The wounded Bigfoot I had helped was not alone. The larger Bigfoot approached slowly, studying me with obvious suspicion. This was the mate, I realized, the partner of the wounded Bigfoot. Every movement the larger Bigfoot made communicated protection, readiness to defend the family if I posed a threat. I stayed perfectly still, letting the protective Bigfoot examine me. It sniffed my hair, my clothes, my medical kit. Then it looked at the wounded Bigfoot's bandaged shoulder and made a questioning sound. The wounded Bigfoot responded with a series of vocalizations, gestures toward me, toward the bandages. Explaining, I realized. The wounded Bigfoot was telling its mate that I had helped, that I was not a threat. The larger Bigfoot considered this, then made a decision. It reached into a woven container hanging from a nearby branch and pulled out fish, freshly caught, still cold. The Bigfoot handed the fish to me, a gift, an acknowledgement. The 2 younger Bigfoot moved closer, their curiosity overcoming caution. They reached out to touch my jacket, my pack, my hair. They made soft sounds, almost playful, while their parents watched. I was being accepted into a Bigfoot family group, welcomed into their home in the trees. The wounded Bigfoot had vouched for me, and that recommendation carried weight. I spent 3 hours on those platforms that evening, watching how Bigfoot lived. They were gentle with each other, communicative, organized. They shared food, groomed each other, interacted with complexity that matched any human family. Over the next week, the wounded Bigfoot healed rapidly under my care. I climbed to the platforms twice daily to change bandages and check for infection. Each time, the Bigfoot family became more comfortable with my presence, more willing to let me observe their daily life. I learned that Bigfoot life was centered entirely in the trees. They descended to the forest floor only at night, when darkness provided cover. During daylight hours, Bigfoot stayed high in the canopy, invisible to anyone passing below. The wounded Bigfoot I had been treating became my primary teacher. I started calling this Bigfoot Red in my mind, for the reddish-brown color of its fur. Red showed me how Bigfoot moved through the canopy, how they tested branches before putting weight on them, how they could travel miles without ever touching ground. Red's mate I called Willow, for the graceful way this Bigfoot moved despite its size. Willow remained cautious around me but no longer hostile, accepting that I was helping Red recover. The 2 younger Bigfoot were adolescents, perhaps 12 or 13 years old in human terms. They had not reached full size, but were already larger than any human. They were playful, curious, constantly testing boundaries like any teenagers. Red began teaching me deliberately, patiently, showing me aspects of Bigfoot life. How they collected rainwater and carved bark channels. How they preserved fish by drying it in the sun on high platforms. How they wove containers from bark strips, creating storage that kept food fresh. The sophistication of Bigfoot culture amazed me. These were not primitive creatures. They had developed solutions to every survival challenge, adapted them to arboreal life, refined them over generations. Red showed me Bigfoot tools, implements carved from stone and wood, cutting edges sharp enough to process meat, digging tools for excavating roots, hooks for hanging containers. Each tool was purposeful, designed for specific tasks. The Bigfoot language was complex, more than just grunts and howls. They had specific vocalizations for different foods, for danger levels, for family members. They used gestures to communicate detailed information, pointing and demonstrating to convey meaning. I started learning Bigfoot communication basics. A low rumble meant contentment or approval. A sharp whistle indicated caution. A series of clicks meant food, specifically fish. Red taught me these sounds, repeating them until I could approximate the right tones. The adolescent Bigfoot found my attempts at Bigfoot communication hilarious. They would mimic my horrible pronunciation, then demonstrate the correct way, patient despite my human limitations. Willow showed me the Bigfoot food storage systems, platforms dedicated entirely to preserve supplies, dried fish, roots wrapped in leaves, nuts stored in woven baskets. Enough food to last months. Evidence. That Bigfoot planned ahead, that they understood seasons and scarcity. I spent 10 days living partially in the Bigfoot village, climbing up each morning, descending each night to my ground camp. The Bigfoot family tolerated this arrangement, understanding perhaps that I was not yet capable of full-time canopy life. But I was learning. Red was teaching me how Bigfoot survived in a world that did not believe they existed. On day 12, everything changed. I was on the main Bigfoot platform with Red when Willow made a sound I had not heard before. Sharp, urgent warning. The adolescent Bigfoot immediately moved to higher branches, disappearing into the densest foliage. Red grabbed my arm with surprising gentleness and pulled me toward a platform obscured by moss and hanging branches. Red pushed me flat against the bark, then covered me with cut branches and leaves until I was completely hidden. I understood. Other Bigfoot were approaching, and Red's family was hiding me. Through gaps in my covering, I watched 3 Bigfoot emerge from the eastern tree line. They moved differently than Red's family, more aggressive, less cautious. These Bigfoot were larger, heavier, with darker fur and scarred bodies. The lead Bigfoot had something hanging from its belt, objects tied with cord. My blood went cold as I recognized what they were. Human scalps, fresh ones, hair still attached, skin recently removed. These Bigfoot had killed humans, recently, deliberately. The visiting Bigfoot moved through the canopy with confidence, like they owned this territory. They approached Red's platform, and I saw Red and Willow both lower their heads in submission. The adolescent Bigfoot stayed hidden, just as I was hidden. The lead Bigfoot made sounds that were clearly aggressive, demanding. Red responded with submissive vocalizations, gesturing toward food stores. The visiting Bigfoot examined Red's healing shoulder wound, made a mocking sound, then gestured around the platform. They were searching for something, or someone. One of the visiting Bigfoot moved close to my hiding spot, so close I could smell its scent, musky and sharp. It sniffed the air, head turning slowly. I held my breath, not moving, not making a sound. The Bigfoot reached toward my covering, and I thought this was the end. Then Red made a loud sound, distracting the searching Bigfoot. Red offered food, dried fish from the stores, and the visiting Bigfoot turned away from my hiding place. For 20 minutes, the visiting Bigfoot took most of Red's family food supplies. They communicated through aggressive gestures and dominant sounds, making clear that they ruled this territory, that Red's family existed here by permission only. Finally, the visiting Bigfoot left, heading west through the canopy. Red waited until their sounds faded completely before removing my covering. Red's expression, as much as Bigfoot expressions could be read, showed fear. Not for itself, but for me. Those visiting Bigfoot had been searching for me, could smell human scent, would return. Willow made urgent sounds, pointing down, pointing away. The message was clear. I needed to leave. My presence endangered Red's entire Bigfoot family. But I looked at Red's shoulder, still bandaged, still healing. Without continued treatment, infection might return. Red was not strong enough yet to defend the family if the violent Bigfoot returned. I could not leave them like this, not yet. That night, Red led me deeper into the Bigfoot territory than I had been allowed before. We descended to the forest floor and walked for an hour, moving silently through darkness. Red brought me to a massive cedar tree, ancient and hollowed by time. Inside the hollow, Red showed me something that changed my understanding of Bigfoot history. The walls were covered in carvings, images cut into the wood with stone tools, stories told in pictures, preserved where weather could not reach them. The oldest carvings showed large Bigfoot groups, maybe 30 individuals together, families with multiple generations, Bigfoot communities thriving in the forest. They showed Bigfoot hunting together, building together, living in harmony. Then, the carvings changed. Human figures appeared, carrying guns, cutting trees, building roads. The Bigfoot groups in the carvings got smaller. 30 became 20, became 10, became 5. Some carved panels showed conflict, Bigfoot and humans fighting, both sides suffering losses. Other panels showed Bigfoot fleeing, moving deeper into wilderness, hiding in places humans rarely went. The most recent carvings showed different Bigfoot responses to human expansion. Some Bigfoot chose isolation, moving high into trees, avoiding all human contact. These carvings showed Bigfoot families living peacefully, hiding but surviving. Other carvings showed Bigfoot turning violent. These panels depicted Bigfoot hunting humans, taking revenge for lost territory and killed family members. The carved human figures in these panels were dead, killed by Bigfoot seeking retribution. Red pointed at the peaceful carvings, then touched its own chest. Red's family had chosen isolation and trees, had chosen survival through hiding. They were peaceful Bigfoot who wanted only to be left alone. Then, Red pointed at the violent carvings and made an angry sound. Those other Bigfoot, the ones with human scalps, they had chosen violence. They hunted humans who entered deep forest. They killed to protect territory. They were dangerous Bigfoot that Red's family feared. Red showed me one final carving, more recent than the others. It showed a human with a gun shooting a Bigfoot. Then it showed that wounded Bigfoot being carried by other Bigfoot, being brought to a tree village. The story of Red's wound. Red had not been shot by Calloway. Red had found another Bigfoot, one of the violent clan, wounded and dying near the killing zone. Red's family had brought that Bigfoot home, tried to save it, but it died before they could help. The violent Bigfoot clan blamed Red's family for the death. That was why they were aggressive, why they took food, why they showed dominance. They thought Red's family had failed to protect their wounded clan member. And now, those violent Bigfoot knew a human was living with Red's family. They would return at the next full moon, Red indicated. They would demand I be handed over. If Red refused, they would kill Red's entire family for harboring their enemy. I had 2 weeks to figure out how to protect Bigfoot I had come to care about. For the next 5 days, I barely slept. I spent hours thinking about the problem, about how to protect Red's Bigfoot family from the violent Bigfoot clan. Every solution I considered had fatal flaws. I could leave, remove myself as the source of conflict. But Red was still healing, might not be strong enough to defend the family without allies. And my leaving would not erase my scent from the territory, would not undo the fact that Red had sheltered a human. I could stay and fight alongside Red when the violent Bigfoot returned. But I was one human with a rifle against potentially 5 or more Bigfoot that killed humans for sport. Those odds would get everyone killed. I could report the violent Bigfoot to authorities, bring in law enforcement or wildlife services. But that would expose Red's family too, would bring humans flooding into this territory, would destroy the very thing I was trying to protect. Red watched me struggle with this problem, seemed to understand my distress. On the 5th evening, Red took me to another part of the Bigfoot village I had not seen before. A platform containing Bigfoot artifacts, objects collected over generations. Among them were human items, a hunting knife, rusted but intact, a compass, a canteen. Each item had a story, Red indicated. Each represented a human who had encountered Bigfoot in these mountains. Some humans had been kind, had left offerings, had respected Bigfoot territory. Those items were preserved with care, honored as gifts. Other humans had been threats, had hunted Bigfoot, had tried to capture or kill them. Those items were kept as warnings, reminders of danger. Red picked up a faded photograph, protected in a piece of bark wrap. The image showed a young man in military uniform, 1940s or 50s era. Red pointed at the soldier, then at a carving on the platform, a story carved into wood. The story showed a lost soldier being found by Bigfoot, being cared for, being guided back to human territory. The Bigfoot in the carving was much larger than Red, probably Red's grandfather or great-grandfather. Red was showing me that kindness between humans and Bigfoot was possible, that it had happened before, that there was precedent for cooperation. But Red also showed me darker carvings, humans who had betrayed Bigfoot trust, who had returned with guns and hunters, who had tried to exploit the kindness they received. These stories ended in Bigfoot deaths, in families destroyed, in trust broken forever. Red touched my chest, then touched the photograph of the kind soldier. Then Red made a questioning sound. Which kind of human was I? Would I protect Bigfoot secrets, or would I bring death to this family? I understood what Red was asking. I needed to make a choice, needed to demonstrate whether I deserved the trust this Bigfoot family had placed in me. I made my decision. I would protect Red's family, would ensure their safety, and would never reveal their location to another human. Whatever that required, I would do it. Red began teaching me with new urgency after I made my commitment. The Bigfoot seemed to understand that knowledge was my best weapon, that understanding Bigfoot ways would help me protect the family. Red showed me how Bigfoot read the forest, how they detected human presence long before humans knew Bigfoot were near. The smell of gun oil, the sound of synthetic fabric rustling, the sharp scent of human food and human sweat. Bigfoot could detect these things from miles away, could track human movements through the forest by disturbances that humans did not know they were making. Red taught me to recognize these signs too, to think like Bigfoot instead of human. More importantly, Red taught me how to hide from Bigfoot, how to move through forest without leaving ground scent, how to mask human smell using pine sap and moss, how to create false trails that would mislead tracking Bigfoot. The adolescent Bigfoot helped with these lessons, playing hunting games that taught me Bigfoot evasion tactics. They would hide in the canopy, and I would try to spot them from below. I failed constantly at first, but gradually learned to see the subtle signs of Bigfoot presence. Willow showed me Bigfoot food sources, taught me which plants were safe and which would make me sick. The Bigfoot diet was more varied than I expected. Fish, roots, nuts, berries, insects, even small mammals when available. Bigfoot were opportunistic omnivores, eating whatever the forest provided. But they were also careful conservators, never taking too much from one area, rotating their gathering locations to allow regeneration. Red's family had survived for generations by being invisible, by taking only what they needed, by leaving minimal impact. They were ghost Bigfoot, existing without leaving evidence that human searchers could find. Over these teaching days, I grew closer to the adolescent Bigfoot. They were playful despite the tension, still young enough to find joy in small things. They would bring me interesting rocks, unusual feathers, pretty leaves, offering gifts like human children might. I made them toys from sticks and cord, simple things that they played with for hours. They showed me their favorite spots in the Bigfoot village, platforms where sunrise hit perfectly or where bird nests could be observed. These young Bigfoot had never seen another human besides me. I was their only reference for what my species could be, the only human they might ever trust. That responsibility weighed on me heavily. If I failed them, if I brought danger to this family, these adolescent Bigfoot would learn that humans were threats. They would grow into adults who feared or hated my species. But if I protected them, if I proved humans could be trusted, maybe they would remember. Maybe they would show mercy to the next human they encountered. Red seemed to understand this dynamic. The Bigfoot was not just teaching me survival skills. Red was teaching me how to be worthy of Bigfoot trust, how to be the kind of human that deserved to know Bigfoot existed. The full moon approached, and Red's family began preparations. They moved food stores to hidden caches deeper in the territory. They obscured the main Bigfoot platforms, made them look abandoned. They created escape routes through the canopy, pathways that led to alternative Bigfoot territories miles away. Red was preparing for the worst, for the possibility that the violent Bigfoot would force Red's family to flee their home. I could not let that happen. This Bigfoot family had lived here for generations. This was their ancestral territory, their village in the trees, their home. They should not have to run because I had been stupid enough to get involved. I developed a plan, risky but possible. I would create evidence of my death, make the violent Bigfoot believe I was already gone. If they thought I had died, they would have no reason to punish Red's family. I spent 2 days preparing. I took my spare jacket and one boot, tore them both to shreds. I used animal blood to stain the fabric, making it look like a Bigfoot attack. I scattered the evidence at the base of a cliff 3 miles from Red's village, along with broken branches and disturbed ground. The scene looked like a human had been attacked by Bigfoot, dragged away, probably eaten. I even left my backup knife embedded in a tree at the site, suggesting a struggle. Then, I burned my ground camp, scattered the ashes, eliminated any evidence I had been living peacefully near the Bigfoot village. If investigators came looking, they would find the fake attack site, would assume I had died, would close the case. Red watched me create this deception, understanding what I was doing. The Bigfoot made approving sounds, recognizing this as protection for the family. but eliminating myself from the human world meant committing to something bigger. I could not return to civilization now, could not contact Jake or explain where I had been. If I went back, I would have to maintain the lie that I had found nothing, that Calloway's wounded Bigfoot had disappeared. I was choosing Bigfoot over my own species, over my own son. Red seemed to sense my internal struggle. The Bigfoot brought me to the platform where family artifacts were kept, showed me again the photograph of the kind soldier. Then, Red made a sound, gentle and questioning. The Bigfoot was asking if I was certain, if I understood what I was sacrificing. I thought about Jake, 16 and angry, wanting nothing to do with me anyway. I thought about Linda, remarried and happy without me. I thought about my empty cabin, my solitary life, my 40 years of choosing wilderness over human connection. I had nothing to go back to. No one who needed me, no one who would miss me beyond filing paperwork. But here in the trees, I had Bigfoot who trusted me, who had shown me kindness I had not earned, who needed protection I could provide. The choice was not difficult. I would stay until the violent Bigfoot threat was resolved. I would protect Red's family whatever it cost. The violent Bigfoot returned 2 days before the full moon, earlier than expected. I was on the main platform with Red when Willow made the warning sound. Red immediately pushed me toward the hidden platform, covered me with branches and moss. This time, there were 5 of them, all large males, all carrying weapons. Clubs carved from hardwood, stone blades tied to handles, tools meant for killing. These Bigfoot had come ready for violence. The lead Bigfoot from before moved directly to Red's platform. It made aggressive sounds, demanding gestures. Where was the human? Why did human scent still linger in this Bigfoot territory? Red responded with submissive posture, but steady vocalizations. The human was gone, Red indicated. Attacked, killed, body taken by scavengers. Red gestured toward the direction of my fake death site. The lead Bigfoot did not believe it. It sniffed the platform, searching for fresh human scent. It found my hidden spot, touched the moss that concealed me, and I thought this was the end. But I had prepared. I had covered myself in Bigfoot scent, rubbing bark and moss that Red's family had handled all over my clothes and skin. I had not bathed in days, had masked my human smell under layers of forest and Bigfoot contact. The searching Bigfoot smelled Red's scent, not mine. It made a frustrated sound and moved away. Red offered to show the violent Bigfoot my death site, to prove the human was gone. The lead Bigfoot agreed, gesturing for Red to lead the way. Red descended from the tree village, and 3 of the violent Bigfoot followed. That left 2 Bigfoot in the village, watching Willow and the hidden adolescents, watching my hiding spot. I stayed absolutely still, breathing slowly, not making a sound. Through gaps in my covering, I watched Willow interact with the remaining violent Bigfoot. These Bigfoot were younger, less scarred, maybe not fully committed to violence yet. Willow offered them food, showed them respect, treated them as guests rather than threats. One of the younger violent Bigfoot responded with less aggression, accepting the food, making almost friendly sounds. But the other remained hostile, searching platforms, clearly looking for evidence of human presence. This Bigfoot found human scent near a food storage container, made angry. "Sounds!" demanded explanation. Willow responded calmly, indicating the scent was old from before the human was killed. The Bigfoot did not accept this, growing more aggressive. Then, the adolescent Bigfoot made a mistake. One of them shifted position on their high platform, caused branches to rustle. The hostile Bigfoot looked up, saw movement, started climbing toward them. Willow blocked the way, put her massive body between the violent Bigfoot and her children. The standoff lasted long seconds, Willow radiating protective determination, the violent Bigfoot considering whether to force the issue. Finally, the searching Bigfoot backed down. Willow was larger and defending offspring, a combination that even violent Bigfoot respected. Minutes later, Red returned with the other 3 Bigfoot. Red had shown them my fake death site, had convinced them the human was dead. The lead Bigfoot examined Red one final time, then made sounds that seemed like warning. No more humans in this territory. Next time, Red's family would not receive mercy. Then, the violent Bigfoot left, disappearing into the western forest. After the violent Bigfoot left, Red's family remained tense for days. We stayed high in the platforms, watching for their return, ready to flee if necessary. But they did not come back. My fake death had satisfied them, at least temporarily. Red's shoulder had healed completely by this point, the wound closing cleanly, full strength returning to the injured Bigfoot. My medical treatment had worked, had saved Red's life. That created a bond between us that went beyond simple gratitude. Red began showing me the deepest Bigfoot secrets, knowledge that I knew no other human had ever received. The Bigfoot took me to territories I had not seen before, places where Red's extended family had once lived. Abandoned Bigfoot villages, platforms collapsed and overgrown. Red showed me what happened when Bigfoot lost their homes to human expansion, empty spaces in the forest where Bigfoot families once thrived. Some sites showed signs of violence, burned platforms, scattered bones, evidence of Bigfoot deaths. These were families that had fought humans, had tried to defend their territory, had lost. Other sites simply showed abandonment, Bigfoot forced deeper into wilderness, giving up ancestral homes without fighting, choosing survival over territory. Red's own family was the last Bigfoot group in this region, the final survivors of a population that once numbered in the hundreds. Every other Bigfoot clan had moved away, died out, or joined the violent groups that hunted humans. Red was showing me extinction in progress, showing me what my species was doing to Bigfoot, even those of us who did not know Bigfoot existed. The adolescent Bigfoot in Red's family might be the last Bigfoot born in this territory. If they did not find mates, if they could not connect with other peaceful Bigfoot clans, this family line would end. I asked Red through gestures and sounds whether there were other Bigfoot families nearby, other peaceful clans the adolescents could join. Red made negative sounds, indicated that the nearest peaceful Bigfoot were hundreds of miles north, maybe in Canada, maybe further. The violent Bigfoot controlled most of the remaining territory. They had embraced war with humans, had decided that killing was better than hiding. They would not accept Red's family, would see them as weak for choosing peace. Red's adolescents were trapped between two extinctions, die out slowly through isolation, or join violent Bigfoot and become killers. Unless something changed, unless they could remain hidden long enough for human expansion to slow, for forest protection to improve, for safe corridors to northern territories to reopen. That night, Red took me back to the hollow cedar with the carved histories. The Bigfoot added a new carving, working for hours by moonlight. The image showed a human and a Bigfoot standing together, both protecting a family of young Bigfoot. Red was documenting our alliance, preserving this moment when a human chose Bigfoot welfare over human interests. The Bigfoot wanted this story remembered, wanted future Bigfoot to know that cooperation was possible. I understood then what my role was. I was not just protecting Red's family from immediate threats, I was protecting the possibility that Bigfoot could survive, that peaceful coexistence was achievable. I stayed with Red's Bigfoot family for 3 more weeks, through October into early November. The days grew shorter, colder, the first snow dusting the high peaks. Bigfoot prepared for winter, gathering extra food, reinforcing platforms against wind and snow. Winter was dangerous for Bigfoot, Red showed me. Food became scarce, cold weakened the young and old, injury or illness could kill more easily. The Bigfoot family needed to be strong, needed full stores, needed every advantage to survive until spring. I helped where I could. My human hands were better at some tasks than Bigfoot hands. I could tie complex knots, could weave intricate bark patterns, could process fish in ways that preserved them longer. But I knew I could not stay much longer. Every day I remained increased risk to Red's family. My human scent would draw attention eventually, would bring either the violent Bigfoot back or would attract human searchers. Callaway would be wondering what happened to me. The university would note that I had not checked in. Eventually, someone would come looking, would find my truck, would start searching. I needed to return to human civilization before that happened, needed to control the narrative about where I had been. Red understood this without explanation. One morning, the Bigfoot brought me my torn jacket and boot, the items I had used to fake my death. Red held them up, made questioning sounds. Was I ready to return to being human? The question hurt more than I expected. I had spent 7 weeks with this Bigfoot family, had learned their language, their ways, their secrets. I had become part of their world in ways that felt more real than my human life. But I had a son who deserved better than an absent father. I had responsibilities in the human world, regardless of how little I wanted to face them. I told Red, yes, I needed to leave soon. The Bigfoot made sad sounds, touching my face with gentle fingers. The adolescent Bigfoot, hearing this, made distressed calls, clearly upset. Over my final days with the Bigfoot family, I said goodbye in the ways they understood. I groomed them, shared meals, sat close in the platforms, and gave them gifts, useful items from my pack that would help them survive. My knife, sharp and well-maintained. My compass, though they navigated by senses I did not understand. My fire-starting kit protected in waterproof case for emergencies. Red gave me gifts in return, carved pieces of wood showing our time together, a woven bracelet made by Willow, stones collected by the adolescents, each one chosen for beauty or significance. These were artifacts I could never show anyone, evidence of Bigfoot that must stay hidden. But they were also precious beyond measure, proof that this had been real. Red's final gift was a map carved into bark. It showed safe territories, places where Bigfoot might still live, where peaceful clans might exist, northern routes that avoided violent Bigfoot territory. Red was giving me knowledge, entrusting me with information about other Bigfoot populations, asking me, in the only way the Bigfoot could, to protect not just this family, but all Bigfoot everywhere. On a cold November morning, I climbed down from Red's Bigfoot village for the last time. The entire family descended with me, coming lower than they normally would, showing respect through vulnerability. Red walked me to the territory boundary, moving slowly, clearly reluctant to separate. We stopped at a clearing where human and Bigfoot worlds met, where I would return to my species and Red would return to the trees. I tried to explain through gestures and words what this time had meant to me, how Red's family had shown me what mattered, had taught me lessons about presence and protection that I desperately needed. I promised Red I would never reveal this location, never bring humans here, never allow Bigfoot to be disturbed. I would protect this territory through whatever means available to me. Red touched my face one final time, then pulled me into an embrace. The Bigfoot's arms surrounded me completely, massive and gentle, holding me the way a parent holds a child. I felt tears running down my face, grief for leaving this family I had grown to love. The adolescent Bigfoot made sad sounds from nearby trees. Willow watched from a high branch, silent but present. They were all saying goodbye in their own ways. Red released me and stepped back. The Bigfoot made one final sound, a vocalization I had learned meant promise, commitment, continued bond. Then Red climbed back into the trees, disappearing into the canopy within seconds. I stood alone in the clearing, watching the branches where Red had vanished. The forest was silent, empty, showing no sign that Bigfoot had ever been there. I walked out to the trailhead, to my truck that had been waiting for 7 weeks. The vehicle started on the second try, battery weak but functional. I drove back to Missoula, rehearsing my story, preparing my lies. I told Calloway I never found the wounded Bigfoot, that the trail went cold after a few days. He was disappointed but accepted it, paying me half the agreed amount for the attempt. I told the university I'd been tracking an injured bear, got lost when my GPS failed, survived until I could navigate out. They were angry about my lack of check-ins but relieved I was alive. I did not mention Bigfoot to anyone. I destroyed my tracking journals, burned the pages that documented what I had really found. I kept only personal notes, hidden in a safe deposit box, proof that could be revealed after my death. Then I made the hardest choice of my life. I quit guiding, gave up the work I loved, and took a job at a hardware store in Missoula. Regular hours, steady pay, boring beyond description. But it meant I was home every night. It meant I could show up for Jake, could start rebuilding what I had broken. Red had taught me that presence mattered more than grand gestures, that consistent care was worth more than occasional excitement. A Bigfoot had shown me how to be a better father than I had ever been as a human. The years after my time with Red's Bigfoot family were difficult but necessary. Jake was 16 and furious when I suddenly wanted to be involved in his life. He did not trust my transformation, did not believe it would last. I did not blame him. I disappointed him for his entire life. Why should he believe this time was different? But I kept showing up. Every basketball game, even when he did not play. Every school event, even when he ignored me. Every awkward dinner where he barely spoke. I showed up because that is what Bigfoot had taught me. Presence matters, even when it is not appreciated. Slowly, over months and then years, Jake began to soften. He started talking to me at dinners, started calling when he had problems, started treating me like a father instead of a stranger. By the time he graduated high school in 1999, we had rebuilt something real. Not perfect, but genuine. He chose a college in Montana partially so we could see each other regularly. I never told Jake about the Bigfoot. How could I explain that a creature from myth had taught me to be a better parent? That I had chosen Bigfoot welfare over human ambition, and that choice had saved me? I visited Red's territory once a year, hiking in alone, leaving offerings at the boundary. Salt, dried fish, useful items that Bigfoot might need. The offerings were always taken, though I never saw who took them. I never went back. To the tree village itself, that would violate the promise I made to Red, would risk bringing attention to Bigfoot, who wanted only to be forgotten. Instead, I worked on land conservation, joined groups advocating for wilderness protection, donated money to organizations preserving old-growth forest. I could not protect Red's family directly, but I could protect their habitat, ensure the territory remained undisturbed. Other trackers occasionally asked me about Bigfoot, whether I had ever found evidence. I always said no, never seen anything conclusive, probably just a myth. My reputation as a tracker made people believe me, made them dismiss Bigfoot sightings as hoaxes or mistakes. I was protecting Bigfoot through strategic denial, using my credibility to discourage human interest. Jake got married in 2003. I walked beside Linda at the wedding, both of us proud of the man he had become. Jake's wife, Sarah, was kind, patient, good for him in ways I had not been good for Linda. That same year, my health began declining. Shortness of breath, persistent cough, fatigue that would not lift. The doctors diagnosed emphysema from years of exposure to cold mountain air and probably too many campfires. They gave me 10 years, maybe 15 with treatment. I was 69 years old, the same age Red had been when we met. I started writing down what happened in 1997, not for publication, but for Jake, for after I was gone. He deserved to know why I changed, what really happened in those mountains. The violent Bigfoot clan had moved on by then, or died out. I checked every year during my territory visits, found no sign of them after 2006. Whatever had driven their violence was gone. I hoped Red's family was still there, still safe in the trees. Jake found my journals 3 days ago while helping me organize belongings here at the VA hospital. I saw his face as he read the first page, saw confusion turn to disbelief, turn to something like anger. He sat beside my bed, holding the journal, and asked me directly, "Dad, what is this? What really happened in 1997? I looked at my son, 50 years old now, gray in his hair and worry in his eyes. I thought about Red's trust, about promises made to Bigfoot in darkness, but I also thought about Jake's right to understand his father, to know why I finally started caring. So I told him everything. The wounded Bigfoot, the tree village, Red's family, the violent clan, the 7 weeks that changed me. I told him about Bigfoot civilization in the canopy, about the choice I made to protect them, about the lessons that made me a better father. Jake listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he sat in silence for long minutes. Finally, he spoke. "You expect me to believe you spent 7 weeks living with Bigfoot, that a Bigfoot taught you how to be my father, that this is why you suddenly changed." I reached for the box beside my bed, pulled out Red's gifts. The carved wood, impossibly intricate, showing techniques no human would use. The woven bracelet made from plant fibers that grew only in high mountain regions. The stones, chosen by adolescent Bigfoot for a human they trusted. Jake examined each item carefully, turning them over, studying the craftsmanship. I saw doubt warring with possibility in his expression. "Can you prove it? The location? The Bigfoot village? Anything?" I told him the location, gave him the map coordinates I had memorized. I explained the tree platforms, the carvings, the evidence that would still be there if the Bigfoot family had survived. But I also told him my request. Do not go there. Do not verify. Do not bring attention to territory where Bigfoot might still be hiding. Trust me enough to leave them in peace. Jake set down the artifacts and looked at me with something like pain. You are asking me to believe in Bigfoot, to accept that you chose protecting them over being my father for 16 years, and you want me to help keep the secret. I am asking you to understand that sometimes the best way to love something is to leave it alone. That Bigfoot deserved protection more than they deserved discovery, that Red's family trusted me, and I cannot betray that trust, not even for proof. Jake stood and walked to the window, staring out at mountains in the distance. What if I want to see them? What if I need to know if this is real or if my father is delusional? Then you will have to decide what matters more, knowing the truth or protecting something rare and precious. The same choice I made 28 years ago. Jake did not respond, just stood at the window, processing everything I had told him. I knew this was unfair, burdening him with impossible secrets as I lay dying. But he was my son, and he deserved to know who his father really was. Jake stayed at the hospital for 3 more days, asking questions, examining the artifacts, struggling to reconcile my story with the rational world he knew. I gave him everything, held back nothing. The location, the details, the promises I made to Bigfoot. On the 3rd day, he asked the question I knew was coming. If this is true, if Bigfoot really exist and you really lived with them, why keep it secret? This would be the biggest discovery in history. It would change everything. I asked him what it would change for the better. Would Bigfoot benefit from being discovered? Would Red's family be safer if scientists came to study them, if tourists came to photograph them, if the government came to manage them? Jake hesitated, understanding the implication. I continued. Every time humans discover something rare, we destroy it through loving it to death. We would study Bigfoot until there was nothing left to study. We would protect them by restricting their movement, controlling their lives, turning them into attractions rather than letting them be. But they are intelligent beings, Jake said. They deserve recognition, rights, protection under law. They have protection now, I replied, through secrecy, through being forgotten, through people like me who choose silence over fame. Legal protection would require proof, would require capturing Bigfoot, would require doing to them exactly what they have spent generations avoiding. Red trusted me to understand that. Trusted me to value their freedom over my own curiosity or ambition. Jake sat down heavily. So you're asking me to carry this secret too? To know Bigfoot exist and never tell anyone? To protect them the way you protected them? Only if you believe my story. If you think I am delusional, if you think the emphysema has damaged my brain, then there is no secret to keep. Jake picked up the carved wood again, ran his fingers over the intricate patterns. This is real, he said quietly. This craftsmanship is real. I do not know what made it, but it was not human, not with human tools. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. I want to see them, Dad. I want to know if my father spent 7 weeks with Bigfoot or 7 weeks having a breakdown in the wilderness. I need to know which version is true. I understood his need, but I could not give him permission. If you go to that territory, if you search for Red's Bigfoot family, you risk exposing them. You risk bringing attention that could destroy them. Is your need to know worth that risk? Jake did not answer, could not answer. He sat holding artifacts from Bigfoot, facing the impossible choice I had faced decades ago. That evening, he left the hospital, taking the carved map Red had given me. I watched him go, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake, if I had just condemned the Bigfoot family I had sworn to protect, or if I had done the only thing possible, passed the burden of protection to the next generation, trusted my son the way Red had trusted me. I died 4 days later, on a cold morning in late autumn. Jake was not there for the actual moment, and I was glad. Death is not meant to be witnessed, particularly by sons who are still wrestling with impossible secrets. But this is not the end of the story. Not quite. Jake told me later, much later, what happened after I died. He honored most of my wishes. He had me cremated, scattered some ashes in the Cascade Mountains where I had spent so much of my life. But he kept some ashes, waiting, undecided. 2 weeks after my funeral, Jake drove to the Bitterroot Mountains with my journals and a backpack full of climbing equipment. He found the trailhead I had described, hiked into the wilderness following the map I had given him. He found the territory where I claimed to have spent 7 weeks with Bigfoot. He located the trees I had described, massive old growth cedars that could support arboreal platforms. Jake planned to climb, to verify the Bigfoot village, to know once and for all if his father had told the truth or had died believing a delusion. But when he reached the base of the first tree and started clearing debris from handholds, he heard something. Not wind, not birds, something else. Movement in the canopy above, deliberate and heavy. Jake looked up and saw shadows among the branches, shapes too large for any animal that should exist. Watching him, curious or cautious, he could not tell. His hands were on the bark, ready to climb, ready to force confirmation. But he remembered my words about protection mattering more than proof, about leaving rare things alone, about trusting without needing verification. Jake stepped away from the tree. He did not climb. He did not search. He chose to protect Bigfoot over satisfying his own need to know. Instead, he scattered the remainder of my ashes at the territory boundary, leaving me to rest near Red the way I had wanted. He left offerings, salt and dried fish, useful items that Bigfoot might need. Then he walked away, leaving the Bigfoot to their hidden life in the trees. Jake visits that territory once a year now, maintains the tradition I started. He leaves offerings, checks that the area remains undisturbed, ensures that no logging or development threatens Bigfoot habitat. He never climbs, never searches, never tries to verify. He told me he does not know if he believes in Bigfoot. Some days he thinks I really did spend 7 weeks with an intelligent species in the mountains. Other days he thinks I had a psychological break and created an elaborate story to explain it. But he realized belief does not matter as much as commitment. Whether Bigfoot are real or not, protecting wilderness is worthwhile. Whether Red's family exists or not, honoring promises is important. Jake has taught his daughter, my granddaughter, about wilderness preservation without explaining the full reason why certain territories matter. She will grow up knowing that some places deserve protection, that some mysteries are more valuable unsolved. The legacy continues. Jake's daughter Emily visits the mountains with her father, learns to leave offerings, learns to respect territory that might hold secrets. She asks why this specific area matters, why they come here every year. Jake tells her that her grandfather loved these mountains, that preserving this wilderness honors his memory. He does not mention Bigfoot, does not burden a child with impossible knowledge, but he teaches her the lessons I learned from Red. That presence matters more than proof, that protection requires patience, that some beings deserve to exist without human interference. Emily is learning to be a guardian without knowing what she guards. She will pass these values to her own children someday, and the protection will continue, generation after generation. Jake still takes out the artifacts I gave him sometimes. The carved wood, the woven bracelet, the stones chosen by adolescent Bigfoot. He holds them and wonders, questions, doubts, and believes in alternating moments. He has never shown them to anyone else. They remain hidden, proof that serves no purpose except to remind him that his father changed for a reason, whether that reason was Bigfoot or breakthrough or something in between. The violent Bigfoot clan is long gone now, moved north or died out. The territory where Red's family lived is quieter, safer, protected by federal wilderness designation that Jake advocated for. He does not know if the Bigfoot family survived. He does not know if the adolescents found mates, if the line continued, if new Bigfoot were born in those trees. Sometimes he hears stories from hikers, people who saw something strange in the mountains, massive shapes moving through trees, sounds that were not quite animal. He dismisses these stories publicly, protects Bigfoot through strategic denial. But privately, he hopes. He hopes the sightings are real, hopes the Bigfoot survived, hopes his father's sacrifice meant something. I wrote most of this account before I died, but Jake has added these final sections completing the story I could not finish. He writes now from his own perspective, his own voice, carrying forward the record I started. He does not know if future generations will believe any of this. The story sounds impossible. Bigfoot living in trees, teaching humans, choosing peace over violence. It sounds like myth, like wishful thinking, like the delusions of a dying man. But Jake keeps the artifacts. He maintains the protection. He visits the territory. He teaches his daughter to value wilderness. And sometimes, when he leaves offerings at the boundary, they are gone the next time he visits. Taken by animals, he tells himself, scattered by wind. Natural explanations for natural phenomena. But sometimes he looks up into the canopy, into the massive trees that could hide entire Bigfoot villages. And he wonders. He wonders if something is watching, if Red's grandchildren recognize his scent, if they remember the human who helped their family survive. He wonders if Bigfoot still exist in those mountains, living in the trees, hidden from a world that does not deserve to find them. And he protects that possibility with silence, with commitment, with the lessons his father learned from Bigfoot decades ago. Some secrets protect the ones we love, and love is not limited to our own species. That is the final lesson I learned from Red, the truth that carried me through 28 years of keeping Bigfoot hidden. Jake understands this now, though it took years and my death for him to fully accept it. He protects Bigfoot territory not because he knows for certain they exist, but because the possibility of their existence deserves respect. The world has changed since 1997. Cameras everywhere, satellites watching from space, technology that makes hiding nearly impossible. If Bigfoot still exist, their survival is more precarious than ever. That makes protection more important, not less. That makes silence more valuable, not less meaningful. Jake has started documenting his own experiences, adding to the record I began. Not for publication, but for his daughter Emily, for when she is old enough to understand the weight of impossible secrets. He writes about his annual visits, about the feeling of being watched from the canopy, about offerings that disappear without explanation. He documents the small signs that might mean Bigfoot persist in those mountains. He also writes about uncertainty, about not knowing if his father told the truth or created an elaborate mythology. But he notes that uncertainty does not diminish commitment, that protecting wilderness matters regardless of what it contains. This document will pass to Emily someday. She will read her grandfather's account of 7 weeks with Bigfoot, will read her father's struggle to believe, will face her own choice about what truth deserves protection. Maybe she will climb those trees, will search for verification, will need proof that her grandfather was not delusional. Or maybe she will understand what Jake learned, that some things are more valuable when left mysterious. The artifacts remain hidden in a safe deposit box, waiting. Proof that convinces no one, evidence that proves nothing, objects that could be explained a dozen different ways. But they are real. I held them, touched them, received them from Bigfoot hands. Whether anyone believes that matters less than the fact that I protected the beings who gave them to me. Red's family might be gone now, died out or moved to safer territory. The violent Bigfoot clan is definitely gone, their violence ending without human intervention. The mountains are quieter, emptier, less dangerous. But sometimes, in certain light, Jake sees shapes in the canopy that might be platforms. Sometimes he hears sounds that might be Bigfoot communication. Sometimes offerings disappear overnight in ways that animals could not accomplish. And he protects those possibilities with everything I taught him. With silence, with dedication, with understanding that discovery would mean destruction for Bigfoot who have survived this long by remaining hidden. My time with Red's Bigfoot family was brief, 7 weeks out of 71 years. But those weeks defined the rest of my life, gave me purpose I had lacked, taught me lessons that made me worthy of being Jake's father. I spent 43 years being a terrible parent, choosing wilderness over family. Then, Bigfoot taught me how to be better, and I spent 28 years trying to prove I had learned. Whether I succeeded is for Jake to determine. He says I did, that our last decades together mattered more than our first decades apart. He says the father who showed up was worth more than the father who was absent. But I know I cannot undo those early years, cannot give him back the childhood he deserved. I can only hope that my change meant something, that Red's lessons translated into better parenting, that Bigfoot wisdom helped me be more human. That is the final irony. Bigfoot taught me humanity. A creature that science says does not exist showed me how to be present, patient, protective in ways my own species had not managed to teach me. Red never spoke words I could understand, never explained philosophy or lectured about morality. Red just lived, demonstrated, showed me through example what mattered: protecting family, staying present, making sacrifices for others, choosing connection over convenience. These are not complex lessons. They are obvious, basic, the kind of things everyone knows. But knowing and practicing are different, and I had spent 43 years knowing without practicing. Red made me practice, not through criticism or judgment, but through trust. The Bigfoot trusted me with its life, with its family's safety, with secrets that could destroy everything it cared about. That trust demanded I become worthy of it. I had to choose between Bigfoot welfare and human ambition, between protecting Red's family and pursuing fame. The choice was clear, and making it changed me. I became the man who could walk away from the biggest discovery in history, because walking away was right. I became the father who showed up to basketball games because showing up mattered. I became someone who valued presence over achievement. Red gave me that transformation. A Bigfoot dying from a human bullet chose to teach rather than hate, chose to trust rather than attack, chose to demonstrate that peaceful coexistence was possible, even between species that should have been enemies. I carry that gift still, even in death. The knowledge that intelligence and compassion are not limited to humans, that civilization can exist without technology, that wisdom comes from unexpected sources. Jake carries it now too, though he struggles with belief. He protects Bigfoot territory while questioning whether Bigfoot exists, honors promises while doubting their necessity. But his doubt does not diminish his commitment, and that is what matters. He does not need certainty to do what is right. He just needs dedication, the willingness to protect possibilities rather than demanding proof. Emily will inherit this same commitment, this same uncertainty, this same choice. She will decide whether to search or to protect, whether to expose or to preserve, whether to satisfy curiosity or honor mystery. And somewhere in the Bitterroot Mountains, in trees that have stood for centuries, Bigfoot might still live. Red's grandchildren, perhaps, or others who found the territory after Red's family moved on. They live, if they live, because people like me chose silence, because Jake chose protection, because Emily will choose preservation. Some secrets protect the ones we love, and love is not limited to our own species.